Hey UConn fans, this is Chris Brodeur. I'm an online producer at the Hartford Courant, and you're listening to another episode of the UConn Insider podcast. Talking men's hoops today, so I've got joining me in our podcast studio, men's beat reporter Dom Amore. Dom, thanks for coming in.
Anytime, Chris.
And on the phone, joining us from the road is Jeff Jacobs, who is about a day removed from watching Shabazz Napier shoot around at Madison Square Garden. And I thought we could maybe jump in there, Jake. Great column today, catching up with Shabazz. And you talked to him about Kevin Ollie in light of, a couple of rough losses in the PK80 tournament. What do you make of, Shabazz's comments? And it seemed like he kind of had a pretty impassioned defense of his old coach, right?
Yeah, he sure did. First of all, he was watching the games. They were completing like a long 5-game road trip, which not coincidentally occurred because of the PK80 tournament was going on in their building, so they cleared out of there. And he watched the games in the tournament, he said, on television, and he said he wished he'd never seen the one from Arkansas.
Yeah.
So I guess Don would probably agree that it's not surprising at all that he would launch a pretty impassioned defense of Kevin, who's coming under, it seems like, a lot of fire from in social media and message boards and various fans. But the part that I wanted to hit on with him was one of the major complaints is about the way they run the offense. A lot of individual one-on-one, high screens of the pick and roll, and it seems for a pretty significant chunk now. Guards have, they head into the lane, and his point that he brought up was, Kevin runs stuff that the Trailblazers run, and but in the NBA with a 3-second violation, although there's really fast athletes and big athletes that can close in a hurry, there just aren't defenders camping out there in the paint all day like there are in college zones. Way man-to-mans are structured, and he put a lot of it on the players. He said, a guard's got to learn how to maneuver it through there, get open, find guys out of there, and it was interesting for him to hear him kind of like dissect that one, because I kind of went after it that one point with him.
Yeah, and I thought I thought he broke it down, better than I could. That, and you can. Yeah, I'm not surprised that he defended Ollie very passionately. I know he became very close with Kevin and really grew as a player under Kevin. But I thought he broke it down very, very well and very succinctly. And you could say that it's on the players, but the fact is, what works in the NBA doesn't necessarily work in college, and you have to adjust. And everybody attacking the rim. I think they try to do the right thing, Jake. I just feel like they try to penetrate and kick out, but then they don't make the threes, and then they give up on it, and then they start to play, quote unquote hero ball. For me, Jake, I just think the X's and O's are a part of it, but it's more that they just can't shoot. I mean, they just can't shoot.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you watch us. How Rodney Purvis drove me nuts.
Yep.
Because he went in. He was the bull in the China shop.
Right. And these guys actually finished better.
That's legit. That's just literal.
Yeah.
But other guys, as we've seen, have gone into that offense, and some have worked better than others, and they make decisions in split second. They rely on their athleticism. But yeah, but I'm with you. There are a lot of. He has a lot of athletic guards, and the one thing I have found following college basketball now for a while is that sometimes those best shooters just, God bless them, aren't as athletic as some of those guys like Ryan Boatwright and Napier and certainly Kemba and now Jalen Adams. But they can hit the three.
Right.
And it really comes down to and I'm with you. I mean, they just missed some open threes too, and it's sort of a dual-edged sword when they go crazy on the drive. complain about that. And then when they miss the open shots on the perimeter, we complain about that.
Why aren't they driving?
Maybe they aren't all in the same player. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and you know, the other thing I want to talk about is that you know, this game was really a tipping point for a lot of people, and I'm not sure why, although I do think it was the timing of it. I mean, obviously the magnitude of the loss, the margin of victory was enormous. I'm not sure why that's important. I don't know what a 28-point loss have felt any differently. But I think that after the Oregon game, people really started to get excited about them again. I think people started to believe again. And then this kind of came out of left field, and it was almost like a Charlie Brown kicking the football thing. A little bit like last year when they won 3 or 4 in a row, went to Houston, they were headed big at halftime. You thought maybe they're going to have a chance to do something to get it together, and then they blow that, and then, of course, they ended the season with 3 or 4 losses. So I think it was just the timing of the thing, because really, I thought the Oregon game was a good win. I can't, you know, you have no quarrel with Michigan State. I mean, North Carolina shot 25% against Michigan State, scored only 43 points. And the Arkansas, you know, it wasn't a terrible Arkansas team, you know. I mean, the first game that I saw out there was Arkansas against Oklahoma just before the UConn-Oregon game tipped, and I was thinking to myself that, boy, UConn would have a tough time matching up against either one of these teams because they're big and they're fast, you know. So I don't think it really, it's not the end of the world, but I think the timing of it, people have just really, I mean, you can't tell people how to react, but in my opinion, maybe overreacted a little bit to the loss.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny because not being there and just watching the game, you kind of like, I don't say you don't become a fan, but you kind of like adapt that sort of consumer/fan outlook. And, you know, I had no sense. I know Oregon lost almost all their starters from their Final Four team, so I didn't really have a sense on how good they were or they weren't, and it's early. And I wasn't crazy when I saw that Oregon game, but I thought the Huskies played really, really well. Yeah. And so I'm watching the UCF-USF football game, which might have been the best college football game of the year, and then Duke had a crazy game. I was worn out, Dominic. I fell asleep, and I missed the first half of the Michigan State game. I wake up at halftime. What is it, 1 point?
Yeah.
So I'm like the fans and saying, like, holy mackerel, they beat Oregon, and they're down 1 on Michigan. I go, this could be special. And then then I watched every play in the second half and saw how good Michigan State really is. And then I watched every play of the Oklahoma game. I thought they truly stunk. And to go, I mean, it brought out everybody. And I'm with you. There's just there's like a certain segment of Ollie haters, or Calhoun lovers, or they're not all one the same. And they have a lot, all of a sudden this dynamic of Kevin's too close to the players, that's popping up, and certainly the offense. They look dead on offense and defense that day, and you can just, like you wrote in your piece, every facet of the game they were awful. And but boy, I think you're right when you said that expectations grew fast and suddenly, and when fans got hit over the head, the nastiness came down just as fast and sudden.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these theories that get thrown out there, I'm not really sure where they come from, because the idea that Kevin is too close to players or buddy with players, isn't this the program that had 4 players bail out on him last year? I mean, you can't be that close. I mean, if all those players were leaving, I thought it seemed to be just the opposite problem. At least,
yes, I agree with you 100% on that. I go like, boy, did I miss that?
Yeah,
I missed that one. You know what I mean?
Where did that come from?
And sometimes, I don't want to get into it with like the fans and the boneyard and all that stuff. But I mean, some of those people do know people, and some of the stuff they say makes real sense. And when they jump on me, I'll admit sometimes I'm wrong. I just wish some of those people on that site would admit they're wrong at times. But having said that, I thought the argument was on the other side of that. So I was kind of like, surprised by that theory, but like they're all coming out of the woodwork now on Kevin, and you don't want to overreact, because if they win some games, a lot of those same people will be espousing his praises. But it does make you wonder, how hot that seat could become this year.
Well, it certainly could become hot because when you look at it's college basketball, and places that have high expectations, the seat becomes hot very quickly. I thought Tom Crean did a really good job in Indiana, and he lost to IUPFW, and really that was the beginning and the end, and then he's out. A lot of really good. Rick Barnes. It seems like he wins 25 games everywhere he goes. He's out, or he was out at Texas. He landed at Tennessee, where he's doing pretty well. But the seat gets hot when you're in that situation. But what I think you have to keep in mind, and people probably should keep in mind, is that UConn not playing in the old Big East anymore. It's going to become, when the Kevin Ollie era ends, UConn's going to be more of a stepping stone job than it was in the Big East days. And the idea of a Jim Calhoun coming here at age 45 and staying until he's 70, probably not going to happen. Again, I think it's going to become a program that goes through coaches every 3 or 4 years, where if somebody wins, even gets the Sweet 16, he's going to be on to a bigger job. And if someone loses because the fans are impatient, he's going to be out quickly. So I think, Kevin still provides a lot of stability to this program that it's going to be very, very different when his era is over. But having said that, they had a losing season last year. They made the tournament as a 9 seed the year before, needed a miracle shot to do that. Missed the tournament the year before that. If they don't make the NCAA tournament this year, the seat's going to get hot. But I think 6 games in is a little bit early for it to get hot.
Sure.
Yeah, 2 thoughts on that. Number one is I both respect and fear a fan base that demands championships. At covering hockey, I certainly saw Montreal Canadiens for years when they started to drop off. It's darn near lunacy, and you have that obviously with like the New York Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
So I respected the fact that, and you coach those type of programs and teams with the knowledge that anything short of something really great, something really bad can happen to you. And so I think a lot of the UConn fan base still has those incredible demands. Having said that, I'm right, and this is the one part that I saw coming along, after the Big East demise, was the erosion. And I've used that word erosion over and over and over again in football and men's college basketball, and I'm even predicting it down the road for women's college basketball if it doesn't change when Gino leaves. And it's a good point you made there, Dom, about maybe after Kevin leaves, we're not going to see, the idea that, Pike will come in and coach for 25 years then. You look at what's happened with the American Athletic Conference football coaches. They brought in a bunch of them in recent years, and they've had really big success, and then they've left for Power 5 schools.
Right.
That might be the lay of the land in the AAC, because right now we got so many big coaches, but a lot of them are let's face it, past what you would consider their heyday.
That's the other option is you bring in retread type coaches on the way down, and it wouldn't take long for this fan base to turn on somebody like that if you had it. But to speak to your point, Jake, and I think people forget it. People at UCLA still have championship expectations every year, and they've won one in the last 42 years. People in Indiana still have championship expectations every year. I believe they haven't won in 30 years. It's hard to go to the Final Four. What UConn did is amazing. It's remarkable. And you could do everything right and not have anywhere near the same amount of success, or not have any championships in the next 15 years, like they had 4 in 15 years. So the expectations are very high. That's not a bad thing. It's because of what they've accomplished. And high expectations are good. But this is a market where when you don't win, the fans not only boo or get nasty on social media, they stop buying tickets. Yeah. And that's the one thing that the loss on Sunday could have as much of an effect as the losses to Wagner and Northeastern last year. Is a lot of people who may have been getting excited and maybe, hey, you know what, I'm going to go get tickets for the Villanova game. I'm going to go get tickets for Wichita State. I'm going to go get tickets for Cincinnati. Now maybe they're dropping it because, you know what, they're no better than last year. They just got waxed by Arkansas. So that's the danger. When you have that, when people stop buying tickets, then, it puts a school administration in a position where there's no choice. They have to do something to get the fan base excited again.
Yeah, that's the product. We are Connecticut. You know what I mean? That is a problem that you would see less in out in the rest of the country.
Right. There's too much competition for the entertainment dollar.
Yeah, there's not much competition, and especially in football, they'll still come out. But you have, there's so much competition here in the Northeast that if you don't win, that land use stake can be encroached very quickly.
Right. And you're right when it comes to women's basketball. If when Gino Auriemma retires, they kind of come back to the pack and become just another good program, but not one that wins, almost every game every year. You'll probably see a drop off in attendance then too. That's just the kind of market it is. You're sandwiched next to New York and Boston, and get the other point. It's, I think for most teams in baseball, if you said we're going to have a manager come in, and in 5 years he's going to win a World Series and 3 division titles, why would you fire him? Are the Red Sox next 5 years going to be as good as the last 5 years were under John Farrell? That's the nature of things here in the Northeast, and UConn's part of that. You think about UConn; they have Yankee fans and Red Sox fans comprise the UConn fan base. So it's
spoiled.
It's a demanding fan base. Not a bad thing. They're paying the freight. They're buying the tickets, but it's something you have to understand when you're coaching or writing about these teams.
You guys have
It's funny. You look at the 4 championships the men had, and if you follow that progression in '99, although Duke was supposed to be a super team and they knocked them off in the finals, UConn was very much a team program that knocked on the door with tremendous sequence, but couldn't find a way to do it.
Right.
And then when it finally happened, it was like this unbelievable relief. Well, it kept on going. And in 2004, it was like they were going to win and they deserved it. You know what I mean? It was like Emeka Okafor was the man. But when you got to 11 and 14, man, it was like they stole them. I don't mean stealing in a bad way. I mean, they stole them and that's when it comes back to, like, this is where in horse racing they call it back class. And it's like, man, they've done it before, so you got this feeling that this program could figure out something again. And they did it one more time for Calhoun. They did it for Ollie. And that's where that level at almost sometimes unreasonable expectation, man, it pays off sometimes, and then other times it looks like sheer lunacy.
Yeah, it is. And really, it's also a unique element of college basketball that, there are an awful lot of levels on which a program is supposed to be successful. And, we haven't talked about the job that Kevin Ollie has done in getting a very dysfunctional academic house in order. They were academically ineligible for the tournament when he took over, and now they have a 4 years running perfect score. Graduation rate has gone from 8% to 66%. How about you should get some credit for fixing that problem, and that's not a small matter to me. I think he's done a tremendous job there, and that reflects on, running a program as, it's not just winning and losing, it's running a program. Now you bring the next coach in here and it's all about winning, doesn't care about academics. Maybe you find yourself in the same situation that you were in 4 or 5 years ago. So, sometimes you got to take the good with the bad. And, I'm not sure that, all right, the offense that's being run right now is not working. I'm not an X's and O's guy, but I can tell it's not working. But is that a reason to maybe go to some of the lengths that we're going here?
Yeah, it's funny on the academic point that, you think about, how Kevin is looked upon, and maybe some players, at least when he took over, saw him as like somewhere between an authoritarian and a big brother. But man, when you watch him play, he keeps after them as far as the books are concerned. And that's not. Yeah, they lost me on that one, Dom. I'm stuck on that. I'm sorry if I'm obsessing on that one, but I feel like I missed something. If there's truth to that he was too soft on him as a coach, and that speaks to the academic part of that also. Well,
it's also amazing how much, and I'm talking even with friends of mine who comment on my personal Facebook page. It's amazing how much people even focus on his look or demeanor on the sidelines, when in reality you're only seeing a snippet here or a snippet there on TV. That they're only showing it to you because it's an extreme reaction. It doesn't
scowled more than Jim Calhoun.
Yeah, and people didn't like his sideline demeanor if they were sitting within earshot. So, it's people focus on that. While he sits there with his hands on his hips or whatever, and then of course when he gets up and yells and screams, and then they say that that's not the right thing to do, and even if you're in the arena and you're watching the coach the entire time, I don't know why you would, but even if you were, or you're behind a bench and you can hear everything, you still don't know the context of it.
Right.
So I can remember games. The first game that I ever covered, the first loss that I covered at UConn was they lost to Central Florida in the Bahamas. And it was a close game, but UConn was blowing a 16-point lead. And Calhoun got so exasperated with him that he just stopped coaching. He just sat down, crossed his legs, basically said, if you're not going to listen to me, then hey, go ahead. And of course they went on and blew the game. And that was his method of coaching or teaching, and who's to argue with it? It certainly worked. But people, I don't understand the obsession that people have with even with what they see on the sidelines. It's just like you're kind of reaching for something. And I think the bit about the buddy thing, obviously reaching for something there because, again, go back to it, 3 players left the program last year. He couldn't have been that buddy.
Well, we've painted a pretty gloomy picture so far, and I want to try to put a positive spin on it like Shabazz did in Jake's column. Maybe, like that Louisville loss in 2014, maybe this Arkansas thing will be a footnote. I don't know. That's that remains to be seen. And obviously they've got a couple games coming up against Columbia and Monmouth where, as you pointed out in your latest piece, Dom, not a lot to be gained from winning those games. But, of course, it does give you a chance to maybe work out some of the kinks, with the offense, with things that were going wrong in the PK80 tournament.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, you can't experiment too much because you can't let these games get away. But it does give them a chance to work it out. But yeah, that's one of the they've played tougher non-conference schedules in recent years. They've had to, and that makes games like Columbia kind of so difficult to really get a grip on because no matter what UConn does, you can't write everything's okay now. They straightened it out because it's Columbia. Columbia lost to Colgate in their last game, and Monmouth can be. We've seen them knock off some big-time opponents in recent years, although I don't think they have as much talent as they've had then. But, yeah, I mean, you're really not going to get another feel for what UConn can do until they play Syracuse at the Garden on the 5th. But they have 4 more chances to get quality wins outside the conference. If they could split those 2, they'd be doing fine. And then, of course, in the conference, I stress this every year, Chris and Jake, they've got to play better in the conference. And that's something that I do believe drove Ward Manuel nuts and drives Dave Benedict nuts is you're trying to make the case that they belong in a higher league, and then you're the number 6 seed in the AAC. So they have to play better in the league. It's been it's been a long time. Really, even you'd have to go back even before that Kemba championship to a time when UConn really dominated the league in the regular season. They didn't do it in the final Big East years, and they haven't done it in this league.
Yeah, on the conference front there, some of those last Big East years where the teams were just the league was just so loaded. Right. It was like 8, 9
right.
NCAA teams. It does take a certain the schedule in this American Athletic Conference. It takes a certain mental toughness, to get in there and travel to some places that are somewhat far away, and everybody's not pumped up. I'm sure to an extent, including the players. If it's Tulsa instead of Villanova, and there's and everybody when everybody knows the laundry, there's something very fascinating and energizing about it, and so I would submit that it takes a lot of fight to get through that conference, and also it seems to me, and I've worn this point out in recent years, is that at the top there were Cincinnati and SMU, where they looked like real men, and sometimes the UConn teams look like boys. They had Cincinnati, as tough as they are defensively, strong, and SMU had some big players. So that's a tough part there too, and that's why with this team, it was funny watching that Oregon game. The one funny feeling I had at Oregon game was when they played so well with that small lineup.
Right, because you can't live off that.
And part of me thinks it's fool's gold. I realize against certain lineups that it can be effective, and bingo, Oregon. But it's also to fall in love with that, and then you have Vital. Some of those young big guys have got to develop, and it's still, to my eye, I can't say, or the graduate student, I can't say which one definitely, but out of a bunch of guys, a couple of them really got to make strides.
Yeah, I would play Josh Carlton a lot and Tyler Polley a lot because I think those guys have upside. I'm not sure how much upside the transfers have. So I would play those guys a lot and see what it looks like. One thing against Arkansas, I might have gone back to the small lineup there only because if you're getting killed on the boards anyway, you might as well go to it and try to outquick them. But you're right, you can't live off that, and it really worked great against Oregon. I think it'll work great in spots against certain teams, but it's not a substitute for having some effective big men. And UConn's big men have not been. They're a little bit better in the rebounding area, but they're not a factor at all on offense, and they don't have the rim protecting ability that Amita Brima had. So at least he gave you that, for all the things that he didn't give you. But I would play Carlton and Polley.
I was going to say there's so many cheap points out there in basketball, and UConn just hasn't gotten them in recent years because of the open three and the open jumper. That's why I guess I'm not saying I'm right on this one, but when Vance Jackson left, that one stuck with me because I thought he could volume score from the perimeter, and it just seems to be a bugaboo in the Kevin Ollie era as far as like it seems like all the points they get are so earned, and then some other schools that come out and they go, and even some of these lesser opponents, you'll just see some kid get 15 points. You go like,
well,
I saw the kid play high school last year or something.
I was thinking, yesterday, when was the last time you saw somebody at UConn hit a 3-pointer in transition? Get a fast break and
Niels Giffey?
And dish it off, and somebody gets a 3 in transition. I mean, they had a few opportunities, they missed them all, and other teams get those all the time. And you saw against Arkansas, UConn had cut it to 10 with a lot of time left, and then they get the ball back and they get a fast break, and they travel and screw up the fast break. Goes back the other way, and Arkansas gets a 3 in transition, and now it's back to 13 instead of 8. And then it looked like they quit after that. Once it got back to 8-16, then it was just then it was look out below. But it's just that they just don't shoot well enough. I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than that they have open shots and they don't make them. And, if you think that every shot Arkansas took was wide open and every shot UConn took was contested, you're kidding yourself. Arkansas shot the ball well. When they had open threes, they don't miss. And it seems like every team gets guys who can shoot the three, and UConn doesn't. And even when they bring in guys who shot the three well somewhere else, like Sterling Gibbs, they don't shoot it well here. So I'm not sure how to do that. But yeah, if you had the ability to penetrate and kick out, and you had Vance Jackson to kick it out to, it would certainly be a different and interesting look. If you were willing to stick with that, if you missed a couple, but they need to find that guy who's going to knock down the three consistently, and then they've got to trust it and go to him, and then that'll open up the middle of the floor. But right now, there's no reason for teams to respect the three, and that's why they're not able to drive through the lane the way they did against maybe some of the teams that, the earlier teams that they played.
Yeah, that becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy when it's like if you can't run,
you
then
can't
it's going to
pass.
be hard to pass in football.
Right.
And if you can't hit the three, they're going to pack it on you, and then
Right.
and then it's all jittery to hit the three, and then if you try to drive
Right.
inside, you could hit the Great Wall of China.
Right. That's basically what it is. Yeah.
Well, just to sort of put a bow on the Shabazz discussion, because again, Jake's encourage people, if they haven't read it yet, to read Jake's column. Caught up with Shabazz in a gym that's been good to him over the years in Madison Square Garden, and he's a guy. God, if they had a guy like that, who basically Shabazz's range was a few steps in front of the half-court line.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who, is finally sort of finding a niche in the NBA, right, Jake? I mean, he's had some starts and stops, and he's in the best shape of his life, I think you wrote, because of some unique training, right?
Yeah, Dom pointed that column piece from the Oregonian out last week, and I went back and read it, and I was taken to ask him about it. Talking about obsession, I talked to him for like 10, 12 minutes after the shoot-around, and he spent 5 minutes talking about that hill in Manhattan Beach, California. It was I guess Russell Westbrook had run it as a young guy, and he was he was taking me step by step through it, just how how the sand gives way, and all of a sudden it's almost impossible to run up it. By the time he's finished it, I halfway thought that Kevin Ollie's going to take the entire team out there during the off season and have them yell about no escalators, only sand hills, and. But it was, he's in good shape, and he's seen his point production has dropped off the last 2-3 games. But I watched the game last night. He had steals, he had assists. Terry Stotts he's gone to a 3-guard lineup at times, talking about how I rail about that sometimes. But even in the NBA now with McCollum and Lillard, he's gone with that, and he's found success with the Trailblazers. So it looks like he's at the end of his rookie contract, so he stands to make some money there, and it looks like he's found a comfort zone there in Portland.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget that the NBA is not different from other sports. It may take 3 or 4 years for somebody to get better and develop a niche. You're not a finished product when you leave college and go to the NBA. That 4 or 5 years in, it might be better. And the one thing about that column too, that Jake, and it was, I'll echo Chris, an excellent column and very, very relevant this morning.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get down there in time.
Well, I know the feeling, believe me. But one of the things that you really lose. People always ask me the difference between covering UConn basketball and other things I've covered, and the Arkansas game was an example of it. If you're covering a professional team or even UConn in days gone by, you could go into the locker room after a game like that and work the locker room and talk to 3 or 4 people and get the raw emotion and somebody, chances are, would tell you really what was going on and what happened and how it, and what the team was going through and feeling, and you could really present a truer picture to people. You don't have, and I think it's good also to get it out in the open for the team, and it's good for players to have that experience of expressing that. But here, they lose the game 102-67, and you have the coach at the podium, and you have one player at the podium sitting next to the coach, and you're just not going to get that raw, real take on what just happened. And it's very makes it difficult to really get a feel for what the heck happened on Sunday or what happened in games like Sunday. And that's really something that I think is missing. You almost wish that if you really want to give the players an experience, the game I talked about in the Bahamas where Jim just kind of threw up his hands and said, after that game, Jim sent Shabazz and Oriaki and Jeremy Lamb out to make sure to talk to the writers, and he told them, you go talk to these guys because I have to. Of course, guys isn't the word he used. He referred to us by another term. But he said, go talk to these guys because I have to. And, I think sometimes, being, Bill Parcells used to say, you're a professional when a quarterback throws 4 interceptions and has to go face the media afterward. And I think it would be good for everybody involved, including the fans, if we had that kind of access, especially after games like that. That's not a time when you want to kind of hide.
Sure.
I think they make the players available in the weight room after UConn games at home, and it's not bad.
It's not bad.
That podium thing, Dom. I would argue that not only they think that they're organized in somehow protecting people. I would argue that too often, because of the stilted nature of those things, that whatever vibe you think you're trying to give off, it doesn't come off. So I think you can actually do more damage to how you're trying to tell your story. And Jim Calhoun, he loved that quote, I can tell my story better than you can tell my story. And I think sometimes when you stand up there, in those stilted press conference with very limited access, and in some places very limited time, whatever comes out of their mouth, you quote, and then the fan. We're just, in all honesty, we're very much the representative of the fans, and retelling those the quotes. That sometimes those quotes are not really reflective of even what they want to say.
No.
So I'm down on that whole. I happened to see that a lot of that press conference from the. The video that was up afterwards. So yeah, I felt like, wow, that was blah. And I'm not sure I got the. Not only did I not feel I got the whole story, I wasn't sure I got like the story.
Yeah, and I walked out and tried to maybe get a couple of players on their way out to maybe try to get more, and it wasn't possible. They were gone, and I just the thing is, Jake, the stilted nature of the responses that you get at the podium gives people the impression that you're in denial about what really happened. Because you don't want to say certain things in front of the camera. Wasn't an issue with Jim Calhoun because it really didn't matter. As we've seen on YouTube, it didn't really matter if there was a camera there or not. There was never going to be anything stilted about one of his answers when they lost the game. But I just think that people tend to the answers are stock, they're pat, they're repetitive. And it gives people come away with the notion that what, this guy's in denial. Look at what just happened, and this is what they're saying about it. So I just think it's. I know this is a losing battle, and no one's gonna feel sorry for us, and no one cares if it's easier to do our job or if we have the opportunity to do our jobs better, even if it is sometimes unpleasant to be in those situations, but. I just feel like it might be better for everyone if you kind of blew the ceiling off the place and let the fresh air in by opening it up that way. That's just me. Most people are going to say, "Who cares?" But that's just my feeling.
I think you're dead on. It's funny because you know this as well as anybody, Dom. When you report something out, and say you just grasp on something that is kind of the story of the moment or the story of the day or something that an athlete says. It's not this perfect raise your hand kind of White House press conference question. It's a lot of interrupting and back and forth. Hey, how old are you? 22? When did your mom pass? You know, oh yeah, where were you raised? And like the questions, and they come out bang, bang, bang in seconds, and they lead to like, and if there's raw emotion involved, it's not all choreographed.
Right.
But when you sit around and in the retelling, our job is to, to kind of choreograph it in a story, and they're not one and the same thing. It just drives me nuts now. We have lost a lot by these over-organized press conferences, especially with young athletes.
Yeah.
Especially with young athletes. LeBron, after an NBA final game, he can go up to the podium, and he's going to say the same doggone thing as you got him in the locker. But 95% of the athletes are not going to.
No, because it's going to be a YouTube moment. Yeah.
And maybe
that's understandable.
And maybe, like you said, Dom, fans are left stretching for, they're psychoanalyzing every movement of Kevin Ollie, and it's because there's a void there where you're not hearing what the players really think about something.
Right.
So.
Or you're just getting what he's going to say at a podium in front of a camera instead of what he might say away. Because, and I know you've been to Cincinnati, when we kind of get him outside the locker room in a small group and there aren't any cameras around and it's not a podium, he tends to be much more. It's much different, and I just think that's something that was needed on Sunday and was missing.
Sure. Well, I want to switch gears here, guys. Talk about another former UConn guard. Not really certainly not a feel-good story like Shabazz finding a niche at this juncture in his career. This one's about Ben Gordon. I don't know if you guys got a chance to catch up on the latest news with him. It's the fourth arrest, I believe, this year. He was involved in a robbery in Los Angeles. I guess it was his an apartment building that he was living in. I don't know all the details, and I'm sorry if you guys haven't had a chance.
Yeah.
But even just what you know of what this last year has been like for him. I know, Dom, you got a chance to talk to him on the phone at one point. This is kind of a sad spiral for a guy who obviously had an amazing college career and then was a very productive NBA player too.
It is, and when he tried to make the comeback last year and he went to go play in the D-League after being out of the game for about 3 years. And he played very well, but he didn't get called up and get a chance. You're really worried that he didn't find something to replace the NBA in his life. That he wasn't ready for it to be over, and it was over basically. I mean, he could play in the D-League, but that's not what he was going to do forever. And you wonder if he had a void in his life that wasn't filled, and if that might somehow lead him down the wrong path. And unfortunately, it seems to have. But, I think it's also beyond the bizarre nature of the incidents. He clearly needs some help. And I'm hoping that he gets the help he needs. I don't know him well. I didn't cover him at UConn. But he was too good a player at UConn and too good had too good a career in the NBA to be spiraling like this, and you hope he gets the help. And he's a guy that, UConn essentially has a plaque waiting for him to put him in the Huskies of Honor. It's a matter of him coming to UConn because they like to have the person there and putting the plaque up, and they haven't been able to get him to come to a game to do it, possibly because he doesn't. It's a sign that it's over, for him. So it's like a lot of players have a lot of problems when the ball stops bouncing, and I sadly, it seems he's one of those.
Yeah, I can only echo that when these athletes stop playing the game, whatever game it is, that transition can be ultra painful and trying. And if you're bringing along baggage already, man, that baggage becomes 10 times heavier when you lost the identity of who you are. And that's my thoughts there. I will say, having covered him some and not really knowing him, he was never an effervescent guy. You know what I mean? Like Khalid El-Amin was effervescent. Richard Hamilton was almost kid-like at times. There was a little bit like Kemba, but as Kemba went along, I thought Kemba became more and more personable. And and Shabazz, he oozes that personality too. So Ben was like, I can't think of every guard that went through there, but he seemed to be the most the quiet and reserved. He did have a thing there in the women when he was in college when he was accused of smacking a girlfriend, and I said I can remember all the details of that, but that was something that happened when he was there. Whether that was the tip of the iceberg, something that could come later on in life, or that has nothing to do with where he's at now, that would be foolish for me to speculate on. But clearly there's something wrong there, and he needs to get help before something really, really horrible happens.
Right.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder because, Calhoun has done this for a lot of other guys after their careers. If they're in contact or if Calhoun will try to reach out soon. I mean, like we said here, it seems like it's already in a dark place, and you just hope that it doesn't get any worse. This was a dark podcast. I guess that's to be expected after 102.67, right? Thank you guys for participating here, and we'll do this again next week. Maybe we'll have some better news to chew over.
Well, it's a little more fun when you do have better news to chew over. It's but as I often say, if you take out all the parts of our jobs that are unpleasant or uncomfortable or awkward or frustrating, we'd end up paying them to let us do it if we just left the fun stuff. So we got to deal with this side of it too.
Sure. All right,
Nothing
guys.
but sunshine for me next week, Chris.
All right, sounds good, Jake. Well, you got to save some gloom for UConn football.
There's always gloom for that.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dom.